how did this baby white rhino come to be running around at Longleat? Today, a baby rhino is no longer a rare sight in Britain's safari parks. But the fact that it's here at all is something of a miracle. For a century ago, in Africa, these splendid beasts were heading for extinction. Today, their descendants are still here. Natal's Umfolozi Game Reserve, the oldest in Africa. 118,000 acres of rolling hills and river valley, red oat grasslands, mtomboti trees, and thorn thickets where the rhinos can roam in peace. After the elephant, the largest living land mammal, but a gentle giant. Vital statistics: poor eyesight, good hearing, good sense of smell, can weigh 2.5 tons and stand over 2 meters high, spends most of its time eating grass, and may eat 1/2 ton of grass a day. The one thing they're not is white. The name comes from a Cape Dutch word meaning wide, which refers to those lawnmower lips. The black rhino is a very different animal. It's a browser with a pointed upper lip for plucking at bushes. It holds its head up higher than the white rhino, and though slightly smaller, is far more formidable. Black rhinos are more inquisitive and often downright aggressive when threatened. White rhinos are altogether more docile. An adult male holds a territory of about 4 square kilometres, which he patrols constantly and defends from intruders. Like a medieval knight, Duke, the territorial male on the left, confronts a neighbour in a typical border dispute. Silently, the two bulls manoeuvre. The cocked ears signal that neither wish to fight. It's just a show of strength, reminding both of their boundary line. Reassured, they retreat. And Duke goes through a familiar behaviour pattern. He rubs his horn on the ground, drags his feet over the same spot, and finally releases a spray of urine. It's his way of marking his boundary. Though rivals are not welcome, one single subordinate male is tolerated in a territory. Whenever they meet, the two males investigate one another. The one on the right with his ears laid back is the subordinate, and curiously, he's the noisy one. Duke is silent, confident in his superiority within his own territory. The growls, laid-back ears and curled-up tail all communicate the subordinate's inferior status. Soon Duke signals his confidence by withdrawing and turns broadside on, so the squealing stops. He tolerates groups of females and young passing through his territory. They range much further afield, crossing several male strongholds in their search for food and water. In the arid bush country of Umfolozi, water is precious, and as the dry season progresses, all the animals, including white rhino, become increasingly dependent on the waterholes. This particular waterhole is shared by Duke and several other male rhinos. Each has his own drinking point, and by sticking to their own patch or arriving at different times, they usually manage to avoid each other. The approach of a large group of females and sub-adults arouses Duke's curiosity, and he's confronted by a formidable old roaring matriarch. Curiosity satisfied, they disengage. But the tension is clearly too much for the youngsters. After the dust has settled, the animals cautiously reappear and return to the water's edge. Thirsts must be quenched, though in the dry season, white rhinos may go up to 4 days without coming to drink. It's a peaceful scene. Though a giraffe must lower its neck to drink, it must never relax its guard. For the waterhole is also a place of danger. A place where lions may lurk in ambush. But the big cats pose little threat to white rhinos, not even a mother and calf, who live separately from the protective group of mature females and sub-adults. When the lioness has departed, peace returns once more. And mother and calf wander on in search of new pastures. Meanwhile, Duke has got wind of approaching visitors. The newcomers are a female and her calf. As they pass through his territory in search of fresh grazing, he moves in to investigate. The calf is 18 months old, and the female is just coming into season again. Very soon she'll be ready to receive a mate, and Duke is determined it will be him. She is not so sure, but he has set his heart on her and patrols his border to head off her escape. For several hours, she tries every strategy to cross his borderline, but to no avail. Finally, to emphasize his sovereignty, he marks his territory again with urine. And eventually, mother and calf settle down to graze. Horn rubbing at a dung pile is also part of territory marking. Duke makes daily visits to these middens and scatters the old dung before depositing more. Each male leaves his own distinctive smell, and these middens act as a warning. To another male rhino, the message is clear: keep out. When you consider that a single white rhino can produce nearly 30 tons of dung a year, it's a wonder that the veldt isn't permanently buried in droppings. He has many middens around his territory, and some boundary ones may be 15 meters across. And the volume of dung builds up, especially by the end of the dry season. But with the coming of the rains, the middens seethe with awakening life. It's nature's sanitation squad, the dung beetles. By devouring and burying the fresh dung, the beetles play a vital role in recycling valuable nutrients. Africa has over 2,000 species of dung beetle, and competition is fierce. For these busy beetles, it's a long haul to roll the dung ball from the deep rhino midden away to a secret hiding place. This species of scarab beetle frequently works in pairs, the female hitching a ride as the male pushes. The faster they can dig out a ball and trundle off with their prize, the less chance there is of other beetles stealing it. If another beetle muscles in, the owner defends it in two ways, either by putting a half Nelson on the intruder with his front legs, or flipping him over like a tiddlywink. A 200-gram or half-pound prize is always worth fighting for. Lots of pushing and shoving, and then a winning flip. When the struggle is over, the dung will be rolled away and buried as food for the adult, or a ball in which to lay an egg. When the egg hatches, the ball will provide food and moisture for the growing grub within. And finally, when the next rains come, they will wake the young beetle from its pupating sleep, and the complete cycle will begin all over again. The gift of dung is also welcomed by the swarms of flies that ride on the rhino's flanks. They drop off on the midden to lay their eggs, and wait to hitch a ride on the next rhino that passes by. The abundant insect life attracts other visitors to the midden. A pied crow drops in to feed, followed by a pair of glossy starlings. The cattle egret, on the other hand, is more of an opportunist, waiting to dart in and snap up small frogs and insects disturbed by the wallowing rhino. Wallowing is necessary for many animals. It's an excellent way of getting rid of itchy insects and thoroughly enjoyable whether you happen to be a warthog or a white rhino. Mud wallowing takes place at any time of day and night, but is more frequent during the dry season when it helps the animals to keep cool. On leaving the wallow, Duke's stiff-legged walk is a telltale prelude to more spray urinating, again asserting that this is his patch. Then he finds a familiar tree and finishes off with a satisfying scratch. As the days go by, the cow and calf are content to stay with him and no longer try to run away. But Duke is determined not to let them out of his sight for a moment. When they go for a wallow, he goes too, just to keep an eye on them. After an hour or so, when they leave, he leaves too. The trio have now lived together for about 12 days, and mating will soon take place. Duke is feeling increasingly possessive about his duchess, and when another group of rhinos appears, he immediately investigates. He recognizes the growls and laid-back ears. It's another cow with sub-adults. Her noisy hostility is no more than a defensive gesture. She's no threat to Duchess. As soon as Duke turns to one side, the female knows all is well. Her ears come forward and she returns to her eating. Duke goes back to his companion. In the long, hot noons, when the happy trio become less active, the oxpeckers drop in for lunch. It's a mutual arrangement. For the oxpeckers, Duke is a walking banquet, his body infested with tasty ticks. For Duke, the birds remove the parasites and warn if danger threatens. It's now 17 days since the rhinos met, and courtship is beginning in earnest. That strange sound, hick throbbing, as scientists call it, is Duke's love song. But Duchess is not yet receptive to his advances. Next day, he tries again. This time, she lets him rub his chin on her rump. In a nuptial grove of shady thorn trees, mating takes place to a serenade of sad-voiced wood doves. Now Duchess and the calf leave Duke in his territory and move on. He no longer tries to keep her, but stays behind, master of his domain. After a gestation period of 16 months, Duchess's new calf is born. The tiny youngster squeals to keep in touch with his mother. Now her 3-year-old calf is chased away to join other adolescents or females, and as with all baby white rhinos, the diminutive calf leads Duchess away through the Umfolozi bush. So, despite their primeval appearance, these huge animals lead complex and balanced social lives. Once protected within a reserve, they have multiplied so successfully that Umfolozi now has a problem. A helicopter count confirms it. There are more rhinos than the reserve can hold. They're overgrazing and destroying the land. This year's total, 1,200 rhinos in the reserve. And the annual increase is over 10% each year. The surplus must go. But first, catch your rhino. It's a rough, dangerous, and costly business. First, a tranquilizer dart is fired. Their target, a 25-mile-an-hour tank. One dart does the trick, but the drug doesn't work straight away. The capture vehicle has time to go after another rhino. The marksman's job is done. The driver stops and the backup team follow on foot to keep disturbance to a minimum. Some rhinos run 5 miles before they drop. The next problem, how to move 3 tons of groggy rhino back to base camp. Somehow, the drugged giant has to be coaxed into a specially constructed crate. Fortunately, the Umfolozi capture team are experts. They've had 20 years to perfect their technique. 20 years in which over 2,100 white rhinos have been successfully moved to new homes. The first white rhino to leave Umfolozi was moved in 1961 to another game reserve just 100 miles away. At the time, it was a major triumph. Today, the rhino removal business has improved so much that animals are exported all over the world. Not only does it take the pressure off Umfolozi, but the 2,100 dispersed rhinos act as a reserve. If this isolated population in Umfolozi was wiped out by disease, it could easily be replaced by rhinos from elsewhere. Before going abroad, the rhinos are first taken to a holding boma to recover from the unavoidable stress of capture. Here they settle down quickly, and after only 6 weeks in captivity, they can be safely moved. White rhinos are now breeding in zoos from Whipsnade to Cuba, Canada to Pekin. And so back to England, where these white rhinos have lived at Longleat since 1970. Here they've settled down so happily that this baby white rhino was born here in August 1979. The presence of a captive-bred white rhino thousands of miles from Africa is perhaps the crowning triumph of the long struggle to rescue these unique animals from extinction. Today, the famous Red Data book, that doomsday catalogue of endangered species, no longer contains the white rhinos of southern Africa. Umfolozi is restored, and here in England, this very special baby is further living insurance against the unthinkable, a world without the white rhino.
Altogether, there are 5 rhino species, 2 in Africa and 3 in Asia. Close to an often frequented waterhole, we find the rarest large animal on Earth feasting on leaves within the dense vegetation, seemingly unaware of our presence. A sight like in primordial times. This adult animal can easily be identified as a male because only bulls boast a prominent horn, while the females have a lump similar to a half coconut. We hoped it would come more into the open, to the nearby waterhole. Here the air is not filled with human scent. As we anticipated, it comes to visit the waterhole. Despite our high position in a tree, it's obviously aware of our presence and reacts nervously. Like all rhinos, it orientates itself with its keen senses of smell and hearing, because these archaic creatures are notoriously short-sighted. The single horn is usually small, seldom longer than 10 centimeters. This Javan rhino must have a shoulder height of approximately 150 centimeters. The body mass rarely exceeds 1,500 kilograms. In appearance, is closest to the Indian rhinoceros. Both have a single horn and remarkable skin folds or plates. But there are distinct differences between their neck plates and skin texture. A report in 1988 that Javan rhinos had been rediscovered in Vietnam caused a stir in the international conservation community. The discovery prompted an intensive survey of the region where a female Javan rhino had been shot by a local hunter. Today it's estimated that at most 10 to 15 animals survive within an area of no more than 750 square kilometers in Vietnam. With such a small population, however, the prospects for survival are not good, and so Ujung Kulon remains the last viable home of this magnificent pachyderm. In the foothills of the Himalayas, in Nepal and India, we find a close relative of the small Javan rhino, the much larger Indian rhinoceros. Only these two species have a single horn and boast the characteristic skin folds or plates. In 1950, there were no more than 400 Indian rhinos left in the wild. Two important sanctuaries were established exclusively for these animals. Thanks to successful conservation measures in the Royal Chitwan National Park in southern Nepal and Kaziranga National Park in Assam, India, their numbers increased, and today there are approximately 1,800 on the Indian subcontinent. The most conspicuous characteristic of the Indian rhino are the deep tough folds in its skin, which are the mark of an animal carrying armor plates. The peculiar appearance creates the impression of a truly prehistoric beast. This is not far from the truth, as they have changed little in the last million years. The first creatures resembling modern rhinos appeared some 30 million years ago. They were distributed on all continents in a variety of bizarre forms and attained such high numbers that they dominated the planet. The largest land mammal ever to walk on Earth was the hornless 11 meters high Baluchitherium. With a total body mass of 20 tons, it weighed 4 times as much as an adult elephant. A well-known rhino was Coelodonta, or woolly rhinoceros, which occurred from Britain to eastern Siberia, and attained fame by being the subject of Ice Age artists, who depicted it on the walls of caves in France. Indian rhinos have become a big tourist attraction, generating income for the local communities bordering the parks. In both India and Nepal, game viewing is done on elephants. This mode of transport has two distinct advantages. A ride on an elephant's back provides a perfect 4-meter-high vantage point and is definitely safer than walking. Rhinos are of great cultural importance in Asia. Both sexes boast one well-developed horn on the nose. Although horns of up to 60 centimeters have been recorded, they are seldom longer than 20. In the meantime, many local people have learned that with live rhinos there's a better living to be made than with dead ones. Contrary to popular belief in the West, the Chinese do not use rhino horn as an aphrodisiac. Only some Indians do. Rhino products play an important role in traditional Oriental medicine and remain in great demand. Almost every part of the body is claimed to have medicinal properties, even the dung and urine. No part of a rhino is wasted. In the Middle East, especially in Yemen, rhino horn is also highly sought after. As a sign of manhood, Yemeni men traditionally carry carved daggers, the handles of which are always carved from rhino horn. Were it not for the incredible value placed upon this protuberance in Asia and the Middle East, the rhino's future would certainly be more secure. Apart from females with calves, Indian rhinos are solitary by nature and normally confine their movements to a small area of between 1 and 5 square kilometers. This home range meets most of their requirements for food, water and shelter. Tigers are the only natural enemies of rhino calves. They are vulnerable up to the age of 12 months. Thereafter their skin has become too thick to be severely injured by tigers. By rubbing itself against its mother's body, the calf intensifies the physical contact. This activity provides security and self-confidence. The close relationship between cow and calf may last for as long as 5 years. Because of their strength and bulk, adult rhinos are more than a match for any predator, but there are frequent fights between the males, sometimes resulting in the death of an opponent. Unlike the African species, the Indian rhino's horn is not the chief instrument of attack. The formidable razor-sharp teeth are. With their elongated lower jaw incisors, they can cut an opponent's hide without difficulty. Crop damage by rhinos is considerable, chronic in some areas. The agility with which this old bull uses his upper lip is amazing. He can extend it into a proboscis and with the utmost skill and finesse select particular twigs to pull into his mouth. With the natural increase in numbers, the future of the Indian rhinoceros now seems secure, but the support of farmers and adjoining communities is vital for the long-term survival of these magnificent creatures and other wildlife. Sumatra, in Indonesia. Even today, this territory remains a mystery for many people. The tropical rainforest harbors millions of plants and animals and is among the richest living systems on Earth. The jungles of Southeast Asia have remained virtually untouched for 100 million years. They are in fact much older than those found anywhere else on our planet, including South America and Africa. It's not easy to spot animals in the dense rainforest. This is the kingdom of the orangutan. Like no other animal, these apes have become the symbol of Indonesian wildlife. The diversity of species on the largest archipelago on Earth is amazing. Indonesia is home to more mammal species than any other country. But the ancient rainforests are disappearing at an alarming rate. Human greed, overpopulation, and large-scale forest fires have taken their toll. The result is that areas with suitable habitats for wildlife are becoming smaller and smaller. It's a small female Sumatran rhino. Her tail has been bitten off, probably by a tiger. These truly remarkable creatures are among the rarest animals on Earth. They project something timeless and mystical. The Sumatran rhinoceros is the most primitive rhino alive today. It's believed to have survived almost unchanged for millions of years. Covered in mud, with a hairy coat and equipped with 2 small horns on her head, this cow is so strange it's as if she originated from another world. As rhinos prefer to rest during the day, we're surprised on our way back to encounter a second rhino. This time a very active male crosses our path. Sumatran rhinos are very timid and usually avoid all contact with humans. This individual must have had contact with people before because, to our surprise, it approaches us with great curiosity. He even comes really close to sniff the camera. We're told that this adult male once lived in captivity and is accustomed to people. Hopefully, he will produce some offspring with the resident females. The shape of the mouth, almost like a smile, isn't comparable to any other rhino species. The special liking of rubbing against tree trunks is unmistakable. Now the short shoulder height of this species becomes evident. Sumatran rhinos are the smallest of the 5 rhino species. With an average weight of only 800 kilograms, they rarely grow higher than 1 meter 20. Unconcerned by our presence, the bull behaves completely naturally. Characteristic is the hairy body, which sometimes is covered with a dense, dark reddish-brown fur, similar to the extinct woolly rhinoceros, a species that lived approximately 15,000 years ago. Easy to recognize are the odd number of toes. 3 families are represented in this order Perissodactyla: rhinos, tapirs, and the horse family. All are quite distinct, but all have an odd number of digits, 3 or 1, and carry their weight on the central toe. Unlike the African species, the Sumatran rhino doesn't kick its dung, but its urine. Very little is known about its behavior, and yet this creature is on the verge of extinction. In an endeavor to ensure the survival of these prehistoric beasts, efforts are being made to breed them in captivity. Wild animals are caught and then translocated to captive breeding centers in almost natural surroundings. However, all attempts so far have been unsuccessful. Various captive breeding programs in the 80s even ended in disaster. Of 40 rhinos which were caught for this purpose, 22 died. Except for 1 female, caught when pregnant, none of the animals ever gave birth. Early morning in South Africa's Shoshului-Umfolozi, a wildlife reserve of great significance. The Black Umfolozi River flows sluggishly through a landscape that's remained unchanged for 100 years. This game reserve in KwaZulu-Natal is famous for its square-lipped rhinos, also called white rhinos. In South Africa, these giants occur in large numbers, but are virtually extinct in the rest of Africa. They feed exclusively on grass. The misleading name white rhino is probably derived from the Dutch word wijd, meaning wide, and referring to the shape of the mouth, which is adapted to grazing. They feed very methodically, standing in one place and moving the head from side to side. Records about which animal is second on the list of the Earth's heaviest land mammals must include this species. In fact, both the Indian and the square-lipped rhinos can weigh over 3 tons. Those vicious-looking horns, in human terms more precious than gold, are of keratin, similar to the horns of antelopes, or our fingernails. Adult males are, by preference, solitary, but this bull approaches the cow with unmistakable intentions. Fearlessly, she confronts him. Her refusal has the desired effect. The male gives up. Only those which qualify are accepted. Meanwhile, the dominant bull of the area is involved with the female and her calf and will not move from her side for the next few days. Gently rubbing horns, they settle next to a waterhole in the midday heat. The 2 approaching bulls haven't been noticed yet. Their eyesight is adapted to their way of life. Rhinos can focus up to a few meters away, but everything further than that is observed as movement rather than as objects. Certainly their arrival has been smelt. The dominant bull stands still, and they remain for a while with their horns touching. When the female joins them, the newcomer decides to provoke her. Immediately, he's pushed back by the dominant bull. Normally, an energetic warning is sufficient. The rival steps back and avoids a serious confrontation. Fights seldom end in the death of a combatant, but they can. In rare instances, losers are mortally wounded. Square-lipped rhinos are usually docile and have a moderate disposition. Soon, harmony is restored, and all share the area around the waterhole. Although white rhinos prefer grassy plains with plenty of shady trees and water, a great variety of landscapes and vegetation zones fall within their habitat. The plant life in this park is worthy of note. The diversity of vegetation, a unique combination of bush, savanna, forest and grassland, is found hardly anywhere else in Africa. There are more plant species in Shoshului-Umfolozi than in Ireland, or 70% as many species as in the whole of Great Britain, an impressive statistic for an area of only 900 square kilometres. Especially the marshes, lakes and swamps make KwaZulu-Natal an El Dorado for thousands of water birds. Pelicans, herons and spoonbills find their fool's paradise. In the dry season, the food swims virtually into their bills. The noon heat drives the hippos onto the mud banks at the edge of the lake. Nile crocodiles are on the lookout for food as well, ready to strike at any movement. The yellow-billed stork rushes out of the danger zone. This pied kingfisher has already eaten its fill. It prefers to observe its surroundings. In close proximity is the hunting ground of the green-backed heron. He takes aim at fish, tiny crabs and snails. Given the opportunity, white rhinos are prolific breeders, even in captivity. Females produce a calf every 3 to 4 years, and it can be born at any time of the year. All rhinos love rubbing their bodies against tree trunks, rocks or termite mounds. Many of these objects have been worn smooth. One can see that they've been used as scratching posts for decades. A hook-lipped rhino enters upon the scene. The prime time of this aged male was a long time ago. The front horn, which he must have broken at some stage, is growing back again. He's been forced out of his territory by a younger rival, and now roams, troublesome and injured, the outskirts of the white rhino's territory. Black, or more correctly hook-lipped rhinos, have been known to reach a similar height at the shoulder, but are usually shorter and considerably lighter. Their maximum weight is about 1.5 tons. Superficially, hook-lipped and square-lipped rhinos are very similar in appearance. However, there are a number of easily observed differences. The smaller head is held high. With a prehensile upper lip for grasping twigs and leaves, hook-lipped rhinos are exclusively browsers. The outsider moves away, limping, but he's resilient. In an intact ecosystem, he can have a life expectancy of 40 to 50 years. The assumption that black rhinos are solitary animals is not true for the females. Almost without exception, the cows are accompanied by a calf. Hook-lipped rhinos are well known for their infamous temper, however. This cow with 2 calves is accompanied by her own and a fostered calf. At the birth of a new calf, cows reject the older one. As it's still vulnerable to predators, the rejected calf wanders around in search of company and may join up with other youngsters, or with another female. This white rhino mother is even taking care of 3 youngsters at the same time, 1 of her own and 2 in search of protection. Elephants and rhinos fill a remarkable evolutionary niche. They neither belong to the hunters nor to the hunted. Access to water is essential for all wildlife in the area. During the dry period of the year, waterholes serve as focal points for most animals. Warthogs are high on the menu for most predators, but this guy can devote himself fully to personal hygiene in the wallow, because his main enemies are not on the prowl during the midday heat. Few animals display such distinct sexual dimorphism as Nyala antelopes. These beautiful animals are endemic to southern Africa. The closest relatives of rhinos are very dependent on water as well. Zebras have to drink at least once a day. Giraffes can survive with little water if necessary. They can make do with the moisture of the plants they consume. For the first few months of its life, a rhino calf always stays very close to its mother. Her strongest impulse is to protect it. This youngster is approximately 6 months old. Its front horn is already 5 centimeters long. While the mother drinks, Junior investigates the water. Not very appetizing, and it's still tired from walking. The calf remains dependent on its mother's milk until it's almost 2 years old. As long as the cow stays close to the calf, the youngster has little to fear. It's November, the beginning of the rainy season, and summertime in South Africa. The clouds have delivered plenty of water and transformed the vegetation. But the rain also has its drawbacks. Day by day, the dominant white rhino bull has to renew his territorial boundaries. He does this by spray urination in strategic places. Submissive bulls do not have territories. Their presence within his boundaries is tolerated as long as they accept his dominance. Another way of marking is by regularly defecating in the same spot. Dominant bulls scratch the ground with their hind feet before and after defecating, but do not kick and scatter the dung as do their hook-lipped cousins. Many stories, legends, and explanations have tried to resolve why rhinos kick and scatter their dung. Probably they impregnate the hind feet with their scent, which is then spread when the animal moves around. This scent trail might enable other individuals to avoid confrontation. These accumulated piles of dung, called rhino middens, are present throughout the year and visited by all rhinos in the region. The middens represent an interesting micro-ecosystem with a web of relationships. A quiet, unseen army of bacteria and fungi consume the dung and cause its decay. Dung beetles also feed on what others avoid. The fresher it is, the more stimulating it is. The insect life in turn is fed on by a variety of birds and reptiles. This red-billed hornbill has a tasty meal. Its cousin, the much larger ground hornbill, observes the scene, but not many beetles and larvae remain to share. Shushului umfolozi is a treasure chamber of rare animals. The active period of our dominant white rhino bull starts during the late afternoon. He wallows in a mud bath. It's his highlight of the day. Completely unperturbed by the presence of so many buffaloes, the male immediately takes possession of the mud hole and starts wallowing intensively. Although rhinos are not able to roll onto their backs, he tries to cover with moisture as much of his massive body as possible. The wallow provides pleasant cooling and helps to keep parasites away. Soon he is joined by a cow and her young calf, which he greets in typical rhino fashion. Another female and calf join in. The male seems to enjoy the company. They approach each other cautiously, touching noses and gently nudging with the side of the head. Despite the sharp horns, they treat each other with incredible tenderness. The same ritual is repeated with new visitors. A third female with her youngster. Probably all 3 calves are his offspring. The animals communicate with one another by infrasound. It's inaudible to humans. It's always the male who initiates the interaction, but not all of them seem to be in a playful mood yet. Completely covered in mud, he jerks his head into the air, a characteristic invitation among rhinos to play. From an evolutionary point of view, rhinos were one of Mother Nature's most successful species. For millions of years, they were the dominant animals on Earth. The surviving rhino family has only 5 species, but the extinction that they avoided down the millennia is now happening as a result of human activity. In the last 40 years, the world's rhino population has fallen by an unbelievable 85%. The devastation we have caused is a tragedy for all humankind. The basis of conservation is understanding the natural world. What a rhino does in one part of the landscape may affect the existence of a tiny dung beetle in another. That's why it's crucial to preserve not just a single species, but entire ecosystems.